All right, we got Douzable here. We got Bryant McFadden there. And let's start with the Seattle Seahawks, who've really been struggling offensively. One offensive touchdown in the last couple games. Probably not going to have Ken Walker for the second straight game tonight. He's doubtful. What does this offense do? What can they do with what they have right now?
Yeah, they've been struggling in that continuity that we're used to seeing between DK Metcalf and Geno that we saw last year. It just hasn't been there. If you look at their game last week against the San Francisco 49ers, I can't tell you how many times we saw either DK Metcalf on a go route not get 2 feet in bounds, or Geno sail the ball out of bounds, or we see DK Metcalf drop the ball. You talked about the run game. Kenneth Walker is so important to this team. Zach Charbonnet really loved him coming out of UCLA, but he has not proven that he can carry the load. Matter of fact, there's a vivid play in my head that I remember from that game last week. It was a play-action pass, and literally Charbonnet runs into Geno Smith and trips him, and they almost get a safety off of that play. Kenneth Walker has been in this system for 2 years. He knows the steps that you have to take in play-action pass. Zach Charbonnet is still learning those things, and there's been times where in certain situations he shot a guy out of bounds. They had to burn timeouts right before a 2-minute warning because he didn't get out of bounds. So if you look at this Seattle Seahawks offense, right, it's really led by the run game with Kenneth Walker being healthy, but they've struggled throwing the ball on the outside as well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the last 2 weeks with that injury that Geno had on his elbow versus the LA Rams. So this is an interesting spot to be in, right? They're playing a defense that will come after you in bunches. Another issue, the O-line has been beat up. Looks like Abraham Lucas, the right tackle, could be coming back. So now you'll have your bookend tackles, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. Hopefully that helps Geno Smith in protection, and he'll be able to throw the ball down the field versus the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, Leger, the reality for Seattle in tonight's matchup, Kenneth Walker will not be with his guys. So they have to find a way to run the football, and it starts with Zach Charbonnet, as you mentioned. Didn't really have his best effort, but heck, you could say the same thing about the entire offense. And, you know, being able to get Lucas back on the offensive line to solidify the bookend tackles that played exceptionally well for them a year ago as rookies will be huge for the entire run game, not to mention the pass protection for Geno. And I got to keep it real with you, Leger. I don't think Geno is close to being 100%. I don't think he's close to being 85%, but he's trying to give it a go. And we saw some issues with his health in regards to accuracy and just being comfortable against the San Francisco 49ers. So for them, it's imperative to try to run the football and don't bail on the running game. Stay with it, stay devoted to the running game, because that can take pressure off of Geno, especially if he's not 100% healthy, and not to mention will provide a sense of balance against a defense that if you don't have any balance, good luck in thinking you're going to be successful when you become one-dimensional against the Dallas Cowboys defensively, especially there on their home turf.
Seahawks, though, still in playoff position despite those struggles. Somebody's got to get those last 2 wild card spots. Seahawks, Vikings have those last 2 right now. Packers, Rams, Saints, Buccaneers. Those are the other teams in the mix for that. Let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys, B-Mac. They've won 13 straight at home. This starts a string of 5 straight games against teams that currently have a winning record. They have not beaten a team with a winning record yet this season.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling because they've been so dominant, right? But they've beaten the teams they're supposed to beat outside of the exception to the Arizona Cardinals, and they've done so with style points. You know, if this was the BCS era in the National Football League, the Cowboys would be one of the best teams in the league in regards to how they dominate teams that they're supposed to dominate against. So this is a team that gets off to a fast start there at home. You see there on your graphic, these are unbelievable numbers. I mean, they've outscored opponents 127-32 in the first half alone. So when they get off to a fast start, it makes life a little easier for the guys on the defensive side, because they can peel their ears back to rush the passer, to be opportunistic in the secondary, to do what? Create turnovers. And I think they're the best creating turnover defense in the National Football League, not to mention their ability to put points on the scoreboard. So if you're thinking you're going to have success against the Cowboys there in Dallas, in D-Town Boogie, you better get off to a fast start, because if you don't, they're going to take you into deep waters in the second quarter, and by third, fourth quarter, you're drowning.
B-Mac and Haas, we'll learn a lot about this Dallas Cowboys team the next 5 weeks. Haas, you alluded to it, right? Playing a lot of winning football teams down the stretch. They start tonight with the Seattle Seahawks, and they have games against the Bills, the Lions, right? They have the Eagles again. So we'll learn a lot about this team. And let's not forget, in Week 18, they play the Commanders on the road. They lost that game last year. If they had won it and the Eagles had lost, they would have won the NFC East. So they have a gauntlet of a schedule down the stretch. And you talked about it, B-Mac. They've been almost unbeatable at home, beating everybody by double digits. That man on the screen right there, Dak Prescott, should be the favorite for the MVP award right now. Ever since that loss to the San Francisco 49ers, 18 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, completing around 68% of his passes, has 4 300-yard games. He has been cooking. Really love what they do with CeeDee Lamb. He's playing like a top 5 receiver. They move him around, does a lot of his damage in that slot position. They've been getting Tony Pollard going in the run game as of late. And B-Mac, you talked about it. When they have a lead, there's no worse defense to play against because Micah Parsons and the boys, they peel those ears back. And then you got an opportunistic Bland in the secondary. Most picks in NFL history on pick sixes. That is a recipe for disaster if you do not start fast in this game. But right now, to me, Dak Prescott is playing MVP like football, should be the favorite in that category.
And right now, Jalen Hurts is the favorite to win MVP. One of the reasons is they've got the best record in the league. But as you mentioned, coming up, Cowboys will play the Eagles next week. X factors for tonight's game. B-Mac has one of them. You've got 2, though, so I'm going to let you go first. Going 1 on each side here.
We'll start with the Dallas Cowboys, right? We're talking about their running back, Tony Pollard. Really struggled running the ball earlier in the year. The problem with them is they're usually up so big, he doesn't get any carries in the fourth quarter. But the Seattle Seahawks defense has been susceptible to the run. More specifically, the perimeter run. We saw last week the Dallas Cowboys really use that perimeter run versus the Commanders last week. We knew they were thick in the middle with, Payne and Allen as defensive tackles, but they tested them on that edge, had success with Tony Pollard. If you look at the Seattle Seahawks defense, Tyreek Woolen, B-Mac, he was benched last week because he was not getting involved in the run game. CMC had a day with them. I like the Dallas Cowboys to come out and try to establish the run with Tony Pollard. We know Devin Witherspoon will tackle. We'll see if Tyreek Woolen will tackle. Let's go to the Seattle Seahawks side. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. Look at this one-hand grab, Haas. Ooh, on the money. This is a guy that's come along the last few weeks, starting to build a real rapport with Geno Smith. And B-Mac, we know this, right? The Dallas Cowboys, they love to play man coverage. Well, Jordan Lewis is their slot corner. I like this matchup with Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. I think they will try to get him involved because Geno Smith, if you're late with the ball around Stephon Gilmore or Deron Bland, it's going the other way. I think they attack Jordan Lewis tonight. Look for Jackson, Smith, and Jigba to have a big game.
I love that. I love your X factors, LeJay, and I got one for you as well. My favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year, Deron Bland. Second-year player out of Fresno. Man, this guy has been spectacular. And in the football book of law, in chapter 21, it states, do not throw 3 out routes to Deron Bland's side. Because if you do, he is going to pick off at least 1, and he will score a touchdown in doing so. This man has been super instinctive. In the secondary, he's playing with a lot of confidence. He has unique ball skills, and he's become one of the best ball-hawking defensive backs in the National Football League, and he's putting forth a historic year. LeJay, you said it. 5 touchdowns, a NFL single-season record, and he still has 6 games left to play, along with 7 interceptions. As I stated, in the football book of law, chapter 21, states do not throw 3 out routes to Deron Bland's side. And if you do, he's going to pick off at least 1, and you might as well expect him to return that to the house for a touchdown. And because of how well he's played, he is my X factor, and I think he should be the X factor week in and week out because he's scored more touchdowns than a lot of wide receivers have scored so far this season.
Yeah,
and he plays the cornerback position. Think about that.
Insane. And out routes, I mean, the risk reward there just is not there for Bland. Let's get picks now. The Cowboys have been great at covering big spreads all season. Just the last 3 weeks, they've covered 17.5, 13.5, 10.5. 8.5 tonight. I'm a little bit surprised, LeJay. You think this is going to be a really good game?
I really do. It's something about Pete Carroll really galvanizing the troops and getting them ready. And if you look at this Seattle Seahawks team, in 3 games this year versus NFC opponents on the road, they're 3-0 against the spread against those NFC opponents. So we look at it. We know that Kenneth Walker III most likely won't be playing in this game. I think they do try to get the run game going with Zach Charbonnet, but I just don't see that DK Metcalf and Geno Smith being off again 2-3 weeks in a row. I think they get that connection going again. Already talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? I think he has a big day versus Jordan Lewis in that slot. That battle is one to really watch. And on the defensive side, Leonard Williams has been really big for this defense. Had a really big game last week versus the 49ers. He's gotten comfortable in that defensive tackle position. Him inside versus those 2 guards from the Dallas Cowboys, that's going to be another good battle. I like the Seattle Seahawks not win the game, but I like them to cover the 8.5.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm going the opposite direction. I'm taking the Cowboys covering this spread, and here's why. Seattle has yet to cover when being an underdog of 7 points or more. Defensively, in the last 4 ball games, they haven't really been playing pretty good football. They're allowing around 27 points, and that's not the thing you would like to see from Seattle, playing against a super hot offense led by Dak Prescott. And in regards to the home atmosphere, the home cooking that they love, they're in D-Town Boogie. On the national stage, yes, Dak Prescott, yes, the boys will be coming. I love them laying this 8.5, 9 points, depending on where you're shopping, because recent history tells all of us they outscore opponents easily when they're in their home stadium. So give me the Cowboys laying the spread.
All right, B-Mac on the Cowboys, Leger on the Seahawks. See how it pans out tonight. Thanks to the fellas. B-Mac's got his podcast with his cuz, Patrick Peterson. Latest episode on the Steelers taking down the Bengals. They've got the Cardinals coming up Sunday on CBS. Steelers in good playoff position right now, 5th spot in the AFC.